Hey guys, welcome to my channel Learning Made Easy Peasy. Hey everyone, I hope you all are doing well. Today in this class, we are going to learn the complete civics of 9th standard part 1 textbook, that is the Karnataka state government published textbook, and this video is related to only competitors. So let us begin. The first lesson in this textbook is our constitution. First, we need to understand is the Cabinet Committee. In the Cabinet Committee of India, we had Lord Patrick Lawrence as the Indian Secretary for Parliamentary Affairs, Sir Stafford Cripps as the President of the Commerce Association, and A.V. Alexander was the Captain of the Indian Navy. So these three people are really important. Please remember them. Once again, Lord Patrick Lawrence was the Indian Secretary for Parliamentary Affairs. Sir Stafford Cripps was the President of the Commerce Association, and A.V. Alexander was the Captain of the Indian Navy. Then, meeting of the National Congress at Karachi 1931. Okay, before making the Constituent Assembly of India, we had formed a committee that was called as Motilal Nehru Committee. So the recommendations that were given by this Motilal Nehru Committee and the decisions that were taken in the meeting of the National Congress at Karachi, which happened in 1931, made sure that we Indians needed a Constituent Assembly. So, need for the formation of a Constituent Assembly. Finally, by the decisions that were taken in this National Congress at Karachi 1931, a Constituent Assembly was formed in 1946. This year is really important. This year as well. The National Congress at Karachi 1931 happened, the National Congress at Karachi happened in 1931. Then the Constituent Assembly for India was formed in 1946. When we first formed the Constituent Assembly, it had originally 389 members. This is also important. This was before the partition of India into India-Pakistan. Then soon after the partition of India into India and Pakistan, the numbers reduced. It went from 389 to 299 members. So then we had 299 members after partition, out of which the 7 members were the members from the Mysore princely state. This is also important. Please remember this. Okay, originally we had 389 members. Then after partition, the numbers went down. It went till 299 members, and in this 299 members, 7 members were from Mysore princely state. Then the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly happened on 9th December 1946. This date is really important. Please remember this. The first meeting happened on 9th December 1946. The second meeting happened on 11th December 1946 under the chairmanship of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. This is also important. Can you see this picture over here? This is a picture of Patrick Lawrence. He is Patrick Lawrence. And this is Gandhiji, Bapu. Can you see this picture over here? In this picture, we have Sir Stafford Cripps. So this is Sir Stafford Cripps. And can you see this picture over here? Please just tilt your phone and just see this picture over here. He is A.V. Alexander. And this picture over here, he is Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Alright. The Constituent Assembly formed 22 committees and 5 subcommittees. So we had 22 committees and 5 subcommittees. The chairman of the drafting committee. Drafting committee was also one of the committees of the in the Constituent Assembly, and a very important committee whose chairman was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. A really important person. Please remember his name. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was also called as the chief architect of the Indian Constitution. Please remember this, because logically if you see, it was basically Dr. B.R. Ambedkar who gave us the Constitution of India. So, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was called as the chief architect of the Indian Constitution. Constituent Assembly took 2 years, 11 months and 18 days to frame our constitution. So please remember this. It took 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. So approximately 3 years. Approximately 3 years was taken by this Constituent Assembly to frame the Constitution of India. But the exact thing is, the days were, or the duration was 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. The demand for Purna Swaraj for India was adopted at the Lahore session of Congress, which took place on 26th January 1930. 26th January 1930. It was to commemorate this event that the new constitution was adopted on 26th January 1950. Alright. So one thing you need to understand over here. Before independence, before making the constitution, before everything else, there was a Lahore session of Congress that was held, that took place on 26 January 1930. So in this Lahore session of Congress, which took place on 26 January 1930, what happened is the people, all the people who were involved in this session, they took an oath of Purna Swaraj. So they demanded Purna Swaraj and they took an oath of Purna Swaraj and they declared that we want Purna Swaraj. So it became very famous. So to commemorate this event, the new constitution that was made, our constitution that was made finally, it was adopted on 26 January 1950 to commemorate this event. So 26 January 1950 was the actual date on which the new constitution was adopted. Alright, so please remember this. This is really important. The Indian constitution was approved. Approved is different. Adopted is different. Understand the difference. On 26th November 1949. So it was approved on 26th November 1949 and came into force on 26th January 1950. So it was adopted and it came into force on 26 January 1950, and every year on this day, that is 26th January, we celebrate the Republic Day. So this is also very, very important. The preamble is a part of the objective resolution put forward by Jawaharlal Nehru on 13th December 1946 and approved by the Constituent Assembly on 22nd January 1947. So the preamble that we have is actually a part of the objective resolution that was put forward by Jawaharlal Nehru long back on 13th December 1946. And finally, when the constitution was made, it was approved by the Constituent Assembly on 22nd January 1947 as the preamble of the constitution. Can you see this picture over here? He is Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the very famous person, the person who was called as the architect of the Indian Constitution. And can you see this picture over here? This is Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of independent India as well. The words socialist and secular were added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. So originally the preamble and the Constitution of India did not have these words socialist and secular. These two words were later added to the Constitution of India by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. So the words that were later added, the number of the Constitutional Amendment Act, and the year, that is 1976, all these things are really important. So please remember them. Preamble is described as the jewel of the Constitution. This is really important. Preamble is described as the jewel of the Constitution. K.M. Munshi has referred to it as the political horoscope. This is also important. Please remember these two things. First of all, preamble is described as the jewel of the Constitution, and K.M. Munshi has referred to it as the political horoscope. Who has referred to the preamble as the political horoscope? It was K.M. Munshi. Please remember this. Originally, our Constitution had 395 articles, 22 chapters and 8 schedules. Today, it has 448 articles, 25 chapters and 12 schedules. So this is important, and it will be always ever changing. So please keep an eye on this. Okay. Then, both flexible or simple and rigid or complicated. So our Constitution is both flexible as well as rigid. It is both simple and complicated. This is one of the important features of our Constitution. So please remember this. Then the central list of a Constitution has 100 subjects, the state list has 61 subjects, and the concurrent list, that is the list that is shared by both center and the state, it has 52 subjects. There are 11 fundamental duties, which is in the part A of the 4th chapter under the clause 51A. So this is the article 51, clause A of our Constitution. Originally, we just had 10 fundamental duties, but then the 11th was later added. 86th Amendment to the Constitution in 2002. It's a duty of the parents to provide compulsory education to their children aged between 6 to 14 years. So this is the 11th duty. It was later added. It was not there. It was later added by the 86th Amendment Act to the Constitution in 2002. Remember this. And what was the duty? Once again, it is the duty of the parents to provide compulsory education to their children aged between 6 to 14 years. DPSP, that is Directive Principles of State Policy. It is the 4th schedule adopted from the Irish Constitution. So one thing you need to understand over here is in our Constitution, many things have been adopted from other constitutions of the world. So before making the Indian Constitution, all our people studied almost all the constitutions of the world, and certain things were adopted from their constitution into our Indian Constitution. So here DPSP, that is the Directive Principles of State Policy, which is in the 4th schedule of a constitution, that is actually adopted from the Irish Constitution. So this thing you need to always remember. Please remember this. This is a flag of Ireland. All right. Okay, so let us now move ahead. Fundamental rights are mentioned in part 3 of the Constitution. Originally, there were 7 fundamental rights in our Constitution. According to the 44th Amendment Act to the Constitution, the right to property, this right has been abolished, and this was added as a constitutional right. So at present, we just have 6 fundamental rights. And which are those? They are as follows. See, first is right to equality from Article 14 to Article 18. Important. Right to freedom. Second one is right to freedom from Article 19 to Article 22. Again important. The third right is right against exploitation from Article 23 to Article 24. Important. The fourth right is right to freedom of religion from Article 25 to Article 28. Again important. The fifth is the cultural and educational rights from Article 29 to Article 30, again important. And finally, we have the sixth right, that is the right to constitutional remedies, that is Article 32, again important. So we have these six fundamental rights which are really important. Their articles are also mentioned, so I request you to learn these fundamental rights along with your articles. This is really important. It has been asked several times in several competitive exams, so please learn this. These rights and their articles should be on the tip of your tongue. Then 1895, the National Congress urged the implementation of rights of citizens. 1895. 1895 again, Bal Gangadhar Tilak had demanded rights for people in his Swarajya Bill. So who had this Swarajya Bill? It was of Bal Gangadhar Tilak. So this is really important. Why I have added these points is because they are mentioned in your textbook. So any information that is mentioned in your textbook is already there over here. Only thing is you need to pay attention, learn this stuff so that you don't forget. 1925, Dr. Annie Besant declared in Commonwealth of India Bill that freedom is very important. So in the Commonwealth of India Bill, this was a bill in which Dr. Annie Besant declared that freedom is very important. And when did this happen? In 1925. So this is really important. This happened before independence, 1925. And can you see this small picture over here? This is Annie Besant. The Cabinet Mission Plan of 1946 supported FRs, that is fundamental rights. So you know that Cabinet Mission Plan happened before independence. It happened in 1946 and it had also supported the fundamental rights. This is also important. Please remember this. 86th Amendment to the Constitution in 2002. Education is made a right under the Article 21 Clause A. The state should provide compulsory and free education to all the children aged between 6 to 14 years. So, by the 86th Amendment Act to the Constitution, which happened in 2002, education is made as the right under Article 21 Clause A. And in this it is said that the state should provide compulsory and free education to all the children aged between 6 to 14 years of age. This was not there before. But after the 46th Amendment Act to the Constitution 2002, according to Article 21 Clause A, this has been added. So this is really important. Please remember this. The Karnataka government has brought into practice the Right to Education Act. Okay, the Karnataka government, this is about the state. The Karnataka government has brought into practice the Right to Education Act, which is in short called as the RTE Act in 2009. So since 2009, this act has been come into practice, that is Right to Education Act 2009. This is really important. Please remember this. This will be important for all those people who are trying to crack the state competitive exams. Okay, the RTE 2009. Also, if it is possible for you, please read on this act as much as possible, because I have seen that many questions appear on these kind of acts. Then, right to constitutional remedies, a very important right. Article 32, we have already seen this, that Article 32 is right to constitutional remedies. So according to Article 32, the Supreme Court can issue writs. What are these writs? Please read on what is this writs and comment below the answers. What is it? Article 226, the High Court can issue writs. So these writs can be issued by only two courts. One is the High Court by Article 226 and second is the Supreme Court by Article 32. That's it. The other lower courts cannot issue the writs. Then Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the architect of the Indian Constitution, has called this right, which right? The constitutional right to constitutional remedies, as the heart and soul of the Constitution. This is really important. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has called the right to constitutional remedies as the heart and soul of the Indian Constitution. Extremely important. Please remember this. Supreme Court is called as the protector of fundamental rights. This is also important. So these are the writs over here. Let us understand them one by one. The first writ is habeas corpus. Okay, what does this mean? To produce a person within a specified time frame. So suppose a person had to be there in the court, Supreme Court or High Court. Okay. He had to be there, but he is not present. So the Supreme Court or High Court can issue a writ, and that writ is to produce a person within a specified time frame, within 12 hours or within 24 hours or within 6 hours or within 48 hours. This or this person has to be present in this or this court. Okay, this is habeas corpus. The second writ is mandamus. So what does this writ say? See, when the legislature, executive or any other subordinate institution, when the legislature, executive or any other subordinate institution fails to perform certain duties which is theirs, then the Supreme Court or the High Court orders them to perform those duties. But in this writ, that is the mandamus writ, it cannot be issued against a private individual, the governor or the president. Only these three people. Apart from this, any other person who belongs to legislature, executive or any subordinate institution, and that institution or that particular person is not performing certain duties which are his to be performed, then the Supreme Court and the High Court orders them to perform those duties. So this writ is called as mandamus. The third writ is prohibition. What does this say? When the lower courts passes a judgment beyond its jurisdiction, or the judgment that is given is against the sense of the natural justice, then the higher courts, possibly the High Court or the Supreme Court, pass an order against such judgments. So prohibition is when the lower courts, they pass a judgment which is beyond their jurisdiction, or they pass a judgment which is against the sense of natural justice, that is going against the human rights or against the natural rights. Then the High Court and the Supreme Court, they pass an order against such judgments, or they cancel that judgments. So this kind of writ is called as prohibition. The fourth writ is certiorari. In this, a document requesting the higher courts. So any person can request the higher courts to review the judgment of the lower courts. So in this, what happens if this thing is requested, then in this context, the higher courts, the High Court or the Supreme Court, orders the submission of the records to the lower courts related to that particular case, that particular judgment which is to be reviewed. Then the case is taken up by the High Court or the Supreme Court, and again it is studied, gone through every clause, every point, etc., and finally whatever judgment is given by the lower courts is reviewed. And in case if the judgment is not right, then the High Court or the Supreme Court studies and take over the case once again, studies them, goes through each and every stuff, and finally gives their own judgment. So the judgment can be changed as well. Alright, so this kind of writ is called as certiorari. Finally, the fifth writ is the quo warrant, or you can also say quo warranto. So in this, the order directing the right person is given to occupy the right public office. Okay, so in this, the High Court or the Supreme Court orders a particular person, the right person, to occupy the right public office. So this kind of writ is called as quo warranto or quo warranto. Then 10 fundamental duties were included in the fourth chapter, part A, Article 51, Clause A, with the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution. So, there were first 10 fundamental rights that were there in the fourth chapter, part A, that is Article 51, Clause A, okay, in our Constitution, with the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution. It was there. But then, what happened is, with the 86th Amendment to the Constitution in 2002, one more duty was added to these 10 fundamental duties, and at present now we have 11 fundamental duties. In the same article, the article doesn't change, 51 Clause A. Then, DPSP, that is the Directive Principles of State Policy. This is in the fourth part from Article 36 to 51. This is important. From Article 36 to 51, we have DPSP in the fourth part of our Constitution. Finally, you need to understand this DPSP, that is Directive Principles of State Policy, they are based on the Gandhian ideals. Okay, this is very, very important. Please remember this. The DPSP is based on the Gandhian ideals. With this, here we have completed the first chapter of this textbook. The second lesson in this textbook is the union government, which is very important in itself. So please pay attention. England and France have unitary system of government. England and France have unitary system of government. Uni means one. So they have just one government ruling the whole country. Every nook and corner of the country, every part of the country is ruled by only one government in England and France. Whereas India and USA have a federal system of government, which means what? That there is not one government, there are more than one government. Okay, you can take here two. So for the center, it is central government. For the state, it is a state government. And if there are any other divisions that are made for the convenience of administration, then we have some local governments administering there. So India and USA have the federal system of government. Article 79 says that there should be a creation of parliament, that a parliament is to be created. And the parliament consists of two houses, upper house which is known as Rajya Sabha and lower house which is known as Lok Sabha. It is really important. Please remember this. So here we have the parliament. In the parliament we have two houses. One is the Rajya Sabha, which is also known as upper house, and then we have Lok Sabha, which is also known as the lower house. So let us understand this one by one. First, let us understand this Rajya Sabha, which is also known as the upper house. In the Rajya Sabha, the total number of seats are 250. 250. In this, 238 people are elected. They are elected, and 12 people they are nominated. It is also called as the House of Elders. It is the permanent body. So Rajya Sabha is a permanent body. That means what? It can never be dissolved. The term of the members in the Rajya Sabha is 6 years. Please remember this. It is 6 years. The Vice President is the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. The Vice President, not the President, it is the Vice President, VP, is the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. This is also important. Please remember this. They have to meet, the Rajya Sabha has to meet at least twice in a year. 2 times in a year. In this slide, we have a picture on the union government. This is for you to understand the things better. See, in every government, we have the legislature, executive, and judiciary, the three pillars of any government. So, in the union government, if you see, in the legislature first, we have the president, then we have the Lok Sabha, which is called as the lower house, and the Rajya Sabha, which is called as the upper house, which we have just studied. Then comes the executive. In the executive, we have the president, then we have the prime minister, the main leader, and the council of ministers, which work under the prime minister. And finally, in the judiciary, we have the Supreme Court, then the Chief Justice, the main judge of the Supreme Court, and the other judges of the Supreme Court. Now let us study about the Lok Sabha. So the Lok Sabha is also called as the House of People. Lok means what? Lok is a Hindi word which means people. Okay? And Sabha means what? It's an assembly. Sabha means it's an assembly. So Lok Sabha basically means the House of People. The total number of seats in the Lok Sabha is 545. Please remember this. In 545, 543 people are elected. They are the elected representatives. And 2 people are nominated. So they are the nominated representatives. 545, in which 543 are elected and 2 are nominated. Reservation. When we talk about the reservation, 79 seats in the Lok Sabha are reserved for the scheduled castes and 41 seats are reserved for the scheduled tribes. Remember this, 79 seats are reserved for the scheduled castes and 41 seats are reserved for the scheduled tribes in the Lok Sabha. Then the term of members is 5 years. Unlike Rajya Sabha, which is 6 years, here it is only 5 years. So please remember this. The financial bill is presented only in the Lok Sabha. The Rajya Sabha can delay this financial bill, can delay its consent to this financial bill for 14 days, but not more than that. Then, both the houses of the parliament have equal powers to amend the constitution. This is really important. This has been asked several times in several previous competitive exams. This is really important. Please remember this. Both the houses of the parliament, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, have equal power. They share the equal power to amend the constitution. Okay, amend the constitution. When it comes to financial bill, the powers are different. But when it comes to the amendment of the constitution, the powers are equal. So please remember this. The union executive consists of the president, the prime minister, and his council of ministers. President is the executive in name. So please understand this. President is the executive in name only. That means president is not the real executive. Only the seal, sign, signature and the name is president. Whereas the prime minister and his council of ministers are the real executive. So the prime minister and the council of ministers are the real executive. Let us first understand the president. Article 52 exclusively talks about the president. So please remember this article, very important, Article 52. He is the constitutional head. So president is the constitutional head. President is called as the first citizen of the country. Okay. The head of the executive. What kind of head? Nominal head. Only in name. Okay, so the president is the nominal head of the executive. And the president is the commander-in-chief of all the 3 armed forces, that is Army, Navy and Air Force. The commander-in-chief of all the 3 armed forces, that is Army, Navy and Air Force. Article 52 and 55 talks about the election of the president. This is really important. Often in many competitive exams, they will only ask you about the articles. So please be sure about the articles. Learn this, that Article 52 and 55 talks about the election of the president. This is really important. Supreme Court judge administers him the oath of the office. This is really important. So president, when he takes his chair, it is the Supreme Court judge, the judge of the Supreme Court, that administers him the oath of the office. The term of office of the president is 5 years. This is again important. Can you see a picture over here? This is the picture of the present President of India, that is Draupadi Murmu. She is the present President of India. Article 61 talks about the impeachment. Impeachment that can be carried out against the president. What is the impeachment? The removal of a particular person from that public office is what is impeachment. So Article 61 talks about the impeachment of president. A financial bill cannot be introduced in the Lok Sabha, that is lower house, without the prior permission of the president. So before even introducing this financial bill in the Lok Sabha, that is the lower house, the Lok Sabha has to first take a prior permission of the president, and only after his permission the financial bill can be introduced in the Lok Sabha, and then the later process can be carried out. Until and unless he gives the permission, the financial bill cannot be introduced in the Lok Sabha. This is really important. The president can declare emergency from Article 352 to Article 360. Very important again. So the articles that talk about emergency are right from the Article 352 to Article 360 are the emergencies, and it is only the president who can declare the emergency right from Article 352 to Article 360 under the 18th part of the Constitution. Emergencies are mentioned in the 18th part of the Constitution. Emergency powers is borrowed from the Government of India Act 1935. Government of India Act 1935. So, the emergency powers is borrowed from the Government of India Act 1935. This is again important. National emergency is Article 352. 352 stands for national emergency. State emergency is Article 356. So Article 356 stands for state emergency, and finally we have financial emergency, that is Article 360. Article 360 is for financial emergency. All these articles are really important. Please remember this. Many times we have seen questions appearing only on emergencies. So please remember the articles, please remember the emergencies, and also remember the dates or the days or the number of times that the emergencies were declared in India. So the national emergency, Article 352. State emergency, Article 356, and finally financial emergency, that is Article 360. First, let us see the national emergency. National emergency is declared when there is an external attack or when there is some internal disturbances. Extreme internal disturbances. Okay, when there is an external attack on India, on our country, by some other country, or there are some serious internal disturbances, then we have this national emergency. In force, it can be in force for 6 months and can be continued. It can be extended for a number of months. So minimum is 6 months. We had national emergency declared in India 3 times. In 1962, in 1971, and finally again in 1975. What happened during these years? Do you know what happened? If you know it, then please comment below the answers. 1962, 1971 and 1975, three times we had national emergency in India. State emergency. In Karnataka state emergency was declared for over 6 times till now. Do you know when all we had this state emergency? If you know the answers, then please comment below. I just want to know your knowledge on this. So in Karnataka, state emergency was declared 6 times in till now. Okay, and the state emergency can go on for 3 years. So the extension of the state emergency can be till 3 years. And finally, we have the financial emergency. Financial emergency is, of course, declared when there are some financial disturbances in a country. If there is inflation, if there is depression, if there is recession, that time we have the declaration of the financial emergency. And thankfully, India never had any financial emergency ever till now. Thank God for this, touch wood. But we don't know the future. Hope for the best. Let us move ahead and understand about the Prime Minister. Prime Minister is the head of the government, and also Prime Minister is the real executive. He is not the nominal executive, he is the real executive. The Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers act as the real executive, and they are the head of the government. Can you see this picture over here? This is the picture of Narendra Modi, who is the present Prime Minister of India. Present Prime Minister of India. Okay, Union Cabinet is the real executive. Okay, then ministers in two hierarchies. We have the cabinet level ministers and we have the ministers of the state. Okay, the ministers are in two hierarchies. First, we have the cabinet level ministers and then we have the ministers of the state. So these are the two hierarchies of the ministers. Till date, 34 no confidence motions have been passed in the Indian Parliament. What do you mean by this no confidence motion? Please comment below the answers. And till date, we had this 34 no confidence motions passed in the Indian Parliament, which is really important. This number is to be remembered. This is actually a very, very important information. Please remember this. With this, we have completed the second lesson of this textbook. The third lesson and the final lesson in this textbook is the state government, which is very important in itself. The previous lesson that we have done, that is the union government. So this lesson is quite similar to that previous lesson. So please pay attention. The first thing that you need to understand is we have 28 states, and this is a wrong information that has been given in your textbook, and 8 union territories at present in India. So we have 28 states and 8 union territories. Which are those union territories? Please comment below. Let me see how much knowledge you have on this. According to Article 171, this is an important article. Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana have bicameral houses. I did not say this because this is a little doubtful. Except this, the other things are to be remembered. Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana have bicameral houses. What do you mean by this? Like for example, the state of Karnataka, in the Parliament of Karnataka, we have 2 houses. Similar to what we had in the union government. Alright. So let us first understand this state legislature. In the state legislature, we have governor and 2 houses. Governor and 2 houses. Which are these 2 houses? It is the upper house, that is the Legislative Council, which is also called as Vidhana Parishad. Upper house, Legislative Council, Vidhana Parishad, and the lower house, which is also called as Legislative Assembly and Vidhana Sabha. The lower house, Legislative Assembly or Vidhana Sabha. So we have upper house and lower house concept in the state legislature as well. So Karnataka Parliament, when we take Karnataka Parliament as an example, in Karnataka Parliament we have upper house, that is Legislative Council, Vidhana Parishad, and lower house, that is Legislative Assembly or Vidhana Sabha. Please remember these names, very important. Here again we have a picture which shows you about the state government. Okay, in the state government, when we talk about the executive, in executive we have governor, chief minister, and the council of ministers. In legislature, we have the two houses, that is the upper house, legislative council or Vidhana Parishad, and lower house, legislative assembly or Vidhana Sabha. Then in judiciary, we have the high court, the district courts, and the other subordinate courts. First, let us understand the Vidhana Sabha. Vidhana Sabha means the lower house or the legislative assembly. Very important. Please remember this and don't get confused. In this, the maximum number of seats are to be 500 and the minimum number of seats are to be 60. Very important. Please remember this. One member is from the Anglo-Indian community. Again important. In Mizoram and Goa, the number of seats are 40. Still they are running. Why? Because the extent or the size of these states itself is very small. They are very small states in size, and that is why this number is fine. It is convenient for them. Okay, only these two states, that is Mizoram and Goa, are an exception. Other all, the minimum has to be 60. In Karnataka, the number of seats is 225 members, in which 224 members are elected. They are the elected representatives, and one member is nominated. So he is a nominated representative. And who is he? He is supposed to be the Anglo-Indian community, a member from Anglo-Indian community. Then the term of the members is 5 years. Again important. The financial bill is first presented in the Vidhana Sabha. Same like what we had seen in the union government, in the lower house, Lok Sabha. Then the Vidhana Parishad can delay its approval for 14 days, not more than that. Very similar and very familiar. So I don't think you will have any confusions or any difficulties in understanding the things. Okay, moving ahead. Members of the Legislative Assembly can elect the President, the members of the Rajya Sabha, Legislative Council, the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker of the Assembly. This is really important. Please remember this. The members of the Legislative Assembly can elect the President, the members of the Rajya Sabha, the Legislative Council, the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker of the Assembly. Now let us understand Vidhana Parishad. Vidhana Parishad means the upper house or the legislative council. So this is important. Please don't get confused. The Vidhana Parishad, the strength of the Vidhana Parishad should be at least 1/3 of the legislative assembly of that particular state. Okay, it has to be at least 1/3 of the legislative assembly. This is important. Should not be less than 40. Should not be less than 40. Karnataka State Legislative Council, that is Karnataka Vidhana Parishad, in this we have 75 members. This is important. Please remember this. It is considered as a permanent body because it cannot be dissolved. The term of the members is 6 years. Again important. It is 1 year more than what it was in the Vidhana Sabha. So please remember this. Legislative Council can withhold the money bill for 3 months. It can withhold the money bill for 3 months. This is important. Remember this. It is also called as the House of Elders, just like what we had seen in the this union government, Rajya Sabha. Okay, House of Elders. Then the state executive, governor, chief minister, and his council of ministers, that is the cabinet, serve as the state executive. Each state must have a governor. But sometimes what happens is 2 or 3 states together can have just one governor, that is a single governor. A single governor can look after the things of 2 or 3 states sometimes. Alright? Let us understand about the governor now. The term of his office is 5 years. Important. He is the executive head and he appoints the chairman of SPSC. What is the SPSC over here? SPSC means the State Public Service Commission. State Public Service Commission. And VCs means VCs means what over here? For all the universities in the state. That means it is Vice Chancellor. Vice Chancellors for all the universities of the states. Who appoints them? Governor appoints them. Then he nominates 1/6 of the members to the Legislative Council. He nominates 1/6 of the members to the Legislative Council. That is Vidhana Parishad. Then coming to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister is the head of the state government and he is the real executive. The Chief Minister and his Council of Ministers act as the real executive of the state government. Okay, can you see this picture over here? This is a picture of the present governor of Karnataka. That is Thawar Chand Gehlot. Thawar Chand Gehlot. Okay, please remember his name. This is important, can be asked. Thawar Chand Gehlot is the present governor of Karnataka and this is 2025 running. Okay, and can you see this picture over here? This picture is the picture of Siddaramaiah. Who is he? Siddaramaiah, and Siddaramaiah is the present Chief Minister of Karnataka. Siddaramaiah. The present respected Chief Minister of Karnataka. So this is important. Both the people are respected, both the people are honorable. So here with this we have completed the third lesson and the final lesson of this textbook as well. So here we have completed the complete civics of 9th standard part 1 textbook. I hope you have enjoyed this class. Thank you for watching. Please do like, comment, share, subscribe to my channel and don't forget to press the bell icon. Thank you.